Imagine walking into a hotel you built from the ground up only to be doubted, dismissed and disrespected. Elena Marshall didn't shout. She didn't beg. She changed everything. This is not just a story about power. It's about how true leadership reshapes the world without ever raising its voice. The Denver skyline burned gold against the evening sky as Elena Marshall's black SUV rolled under the Renaissance Ridge Hotel's towering glass awning. No fanfare, no doorman rushing forward. Just a quiet arrival as if the city itself was holding its breath. Elena stepped out, her dark jeans, navy blazer, and worn leather loafers, whispering a different kind of power. The kind that didn't demand attention, but commanded it anyway. She carried only a scuffed canvas tote slung over her shoulder, a testament to years spent earning every inch of respect she now owned. Inside the lobby gleamed with polished marble and hushed conversations. Velvet couches, gold accents, a grand chandelier overhead. Elena scanned the scene, taking in every detail. With the trained eye of a builder, not just an owner. This was her 15th property, her pride, her legacy. Tonight, she wasn't seeking applause, no announcements, no VIP greetings. She came to experience what her guests experienced, authenticity, truth. As she crossed the floor toward the front desk, the air shifted. She could feel it, the subtle tightening. When an unfamiliar face didn't fit the invisible script, Elena straightened her posture, adjusting her tote. Whatever came next, she would meet it not with noise, but with unwavering stillness. Behind the marble desk, a young woman named Taylor Monroe tapped distractedly at a keyboard, her messy bun bobbing slightly as she chewed on her lip. Elena offered a polite smile, checking in. Marshall, Elena. Taylor didn't look up right away, and when she did, her expression flickered between apathy and mild annoyance. We're fully booked tonight, ma'am. Reservations only. Elena kept her voice light. There's always a suite held for me. Taylor's brows arched. A faint, almost mocking smirk tugged at her lips. Not tonight. The brush-off was so casual, so instinctive, it almost made Elena laugh. Almost, but instead she stayed rooted. This is the Renaissance Ridge, Elena said, voice smooth as silk. Yes, ma'am, Taylor replied, a hint of patronization seeping through. My name, Elena continued, is on the deed. The words hung in the air for a beat. Taylor's smirk deepened into an incredulous chuckle, loud enough to draw a few glances from nearby guests. A businessman at the bar lowered his glass. A tourist couple paused mid-selfie. Elena knew the look. She had met it 1,000 times before, the look that said, "You don't belong here." She didn't flinch. Instead, she smiled gently and said, "Call your manager. The game was just beginning." Taylor huffed, grabbed the phone, and mumbled into the receiver. A few minutes later, Aaron Pettit appeared, tugging at his too-tight tie clipboard, clutched like a shield. He approached Elena with a cautious customer service smile stretched thin across his face. Good evening, ma'am. I'm Aaron, manager on duty. I hear there's some confusion with your reservation. No confusion, Elena replied evenly. I'm Elena Marshall. I own this hotel. Aaron's smile faltered, the mask slipping for a heartbeat. Doubt flickered across his features, followed swiftly by the defensive squaring of his shoulders. Somewhere nearby, a bellhop froze mid-stride, and 2 security guards subtly positioned themselves near the edges of the room. Elena felt the shift, that sharp, chilling moment when disbelief curdled into something heavier. We'll need to verify that. Of course, Aaron said. Voice brittle, Elena didn't argue. She simply reached into her tote, retrieved her phone, and placed a swift, quiet call. This is Marshall. I'm at the Denver property. Denied access. Handle it. She ended the call without raising her voice, without shifting her weight. Silence fell heavy across the lobby. The staff fidgeted. Guests whispered. The marble under her feet felt colder now, but Elena stayed exactly where she was, unmoving, undeniable. The elevator dinged. 2 men emerged, moving with the urgency of a fire alarm. Thomas Greer, Regional Vice President, sharp in a dark suit. Derek Shaw, District Director, sleeves rolled up, phone glued to his ear. Both spotted Elena instantly and veered straight toward her. Ms. Marshall. Greer said breathlessly, his voice low with urgency and guilt. We are deeply sorry. Your suite is ready. Shaw barely spared a glance at Aaron or Taylor as he barked orders into his phone, his tone clipped and surgical, staff scattered like startled pigeons. Aaron attempted to stammer out an excuse, but Greer shut him down with a cutting glare that said, everything you've already lost. Elena gave the faintest, coldest smile. She hadn't raised her voice. She hadn't brandished her wealth or position. She didn't have to. One phone call, she murmured, as she accepted the key card offered to her with trembling hands. Heads bowed as she walked back toward the elevators. The security guard stepped aside. The lobby exhaled, but the shame lingered, clinging to the polished marble like smoke. This was no longer just about a room with 1701 wrapped around Elena like a quiet cocoon. The city sprawled beneath the panoramic windows, golden lights twinkling under the ink-dark sky. A tray of avocado toast and coffee sat on a polished table, alongside a handwritten apology from the kitchen staff. Elena moved through the space, slowly peeling off her blazer, setting down her tote. Her muscles ached, but not from the long travel day. From the weight of memory, she sank onto the leather couch, shoes off toes curling against the plush carpet. The moments replayed themselves. Taylor's smirk, Aaron's suspicion. The guards edging closer. Familiar scenes, different faces. She wasn't angry. She hadn't been angry in years. Anger wasted energy. No, what she felt was older, heavier, exhaustion. The exhaustion of having to prove herself again and again, even with her name carved into the foundation of the building. Her phone buzzed, Jasmine Cole's message. Audit team deployed. Media holding your call. Elena stared at the text. She could end careers tonight if she wanted spark headlines. Make them all remember her name, but she didn't want scorched earth. She wanted change. She closed her eyes, letting the weight settle. Tomorrow would be a different kind of reckoning. At precisely 7:00 a.m., Elena Marshall returned to the lobby, not as a guest, but as a storm cloaked in quiet elegance. She wore a tailored charcoal gray suit, her heels clicking a deliberate rhythm against the marble floors. Conversations stalled as she passed. Staff members straightened instinctively, sensing a shift they couldn't quite name, but dared not ignore. In a glass-walled conference room near the concierge desk, the hastily gathered team waited. Aaron Pettit sat rigid, his shirt collar too tight, sweat dampening his brow. Taylor. Monroe kept her gaze pinned to her lap, her fingers twisting the hem of her uniform. HR had sent a corporate representative, Monica Reed, her expression stony and professional. Thomas Greer and Derek Shaw flanked Elena as she entered. She didn't sit. She didn't even place her tote down. She simply stood at the head of the table, her silence more commanding than any shout. Walk me through what happened. Elena said, her voice low but razor sharp. Taylor fumbled. First, her voice thin. I didn't think you were. Her words collapsed into a whisper. Didn't think I was what Elena asked, the air in the room growing heavier. Taylor's cheeks flushed. The owner, she admitted. It was only beginning. Elena nodded slowly, letting the admission hang in the charged silence. Was I rude to you? She asked, her voice cutting through the stillness. Taylor shook her head quickly. No, ma'am, did I raise my voice? Threaten you? Make demands again? Taylor shook her head, smaller this time, shrinking under the weight of her own actions. Elena shifted her gaze to Aaron. Did you stop to think why your instinct was to doubt me? Why security was summoned before a conversation was even finished? Aaron swallowed his clipboard, trembling slightly in his hands. Monica Reed scribbled notes, silently documenting every beat of the interaction. This isn't just about hospitality training, Elena continued. It's about the picture you have in your head of what success looks like, of who deserves access, and how easily you dismiss anyone who doesn't fit it. No one dared to move. If I have to fight to be seen in a building and I built, what chance does an ordinary guest have? The words landed like stones on a glass floor. Cracks invisible but inevitable. Thomas Greer spoke next, his tone all business. Effective immediately, we're implementing emergency retraining protocols across the Ridge Hotel chain. Derek Shaw added, bias awareness, sensitivity modules. Direct frontline evaluations. No exceptions. Aaron opened his mouth to protest but caught Elena's eye and thought better of it. This isn't about checking boxes or passing tests, Elena said firmly. I want people who don't just know the right words. I want people who instinctively treat every human being with dignity. Taylor wiped at her eyes, the shame sinking in deeper than any HR reprimand. Elena's gaze swept the room. For those who can't align with that vision, there's the door. No one moved. Good, Elena thought. Fear wasn't the goal. Awareness was. She gathered her tote. I'll be inspecting properties personally, unannounced, randomly, starting immediately. The announcement hit the staff like a cold slap. No warning. No time to polish surfaces and fake smiles. It would be real or it would be gone. After the meeting, Elena found Taylor sitting alone in the staff lounge, cradling a cup of coffee with trembling hands. For a moment, Elena simply watched her, saw not an adversary, but a young woman crumbling under the weight of her own limited experiences. She approached slowly, pulling out a chair across from her. Taylor jumped slightly, her eyes wide. I'm sorry, Ms. Marshall. I really am. Elena held up a hand. Don't apologize to me. Apologize to the people you'll meet next. Taylor's eyes welled up again. Tell me, Elena said gently. Have you ever worked somewhere you felt invisible? Taylor nodded, her voice raw. At a diner 3 years. No one even looked me in the eye. Elena leaned forward. Then you know what it feels like? So tell me, how did you become someone who made another person feel that way? Taylor crumbled under the question, unable to answer. That's what needs to change, Elena said softly. Not because you got caught, but because you finally understand. She stood, giving Taylor the space to process what true growth required. Later that day, Elena met privately with Monica Reed and Derek Shaw in the executive conference room. Thomas Greer dialed in remotely. They sat surrounded by evaluation folders, training manuals, and newly drafted protocols. I want real accountability, Elena said. Not performative fixes. Monica nodded. We're launching an internal mentoring program, staff from housekeeping to front desk. Rotational shadowing. Empathy interviews, Derek added. New interview questions too. Bias pattern testing, emotional intelligence metrics. Elena smiled slightly, the first real smile since yesterday. And I'll be the first mentor, she said. No press releases, no grand gestures. Quiet corrections, done consistently. Outside the conference room, the hotel bustled on. Guests checked out, coffee cups clinked at the bar, life resumed. But inside, something fundamental had shifted. Not because of an outburst, not because of shame, because someone had dared to hold up a mirror and demanded that everyone finally look. By midday, news had already trickled through the hotel's grapevine. Something major had happened. Housekeeping staff whispered in corridors. Valets stood straighter at their posts. Even the baristas at the coffee corner stole glances toward the elevators. But Elena wasn't done yet. She ordered a full staff assembly that afternoon. Not just managers, but everyone. Front desk clerks, servers, housekeepers, maintenance workers, security guards. No titles, no hierarchy, just people. When she walked into the hotel's small conference room, every seat was filled. Some faces looked nervous, others curious, a few defiantly indifferent. Elena met all their eyes without flinching. I'm Elena Marshall, she said simply. Some of you met me yesterday without knowing who I was. Some of you judged. Some of you assumed I'm not here to scold you. A beat of silence. I'm here because if respect only arrives after recognition, then we have failed, not just as a company, but as human beings. The room was silent, breathless, like a held breath waiting to exhale. This hotel has my name on the deed, but it's your home too. Treat everyone who walks through those doors as if they belong, because they do. Or you don't belong here. The message couldn't have been clearer. After the formal address, Elena lingered at the back of the room, giving space for conversation. A few brave souls approached her, Loretta Simmons, a housekeeper with silver hair, pulled into a neat bun, stepped forward first. Her voice was quiet but sure. Ms. Marshall, I've worked here since day one, never seen a CEO walk into the staff lounge before. Elena smiled gently. Maybe that's the problem. Loretta chuckled. Maybe it is, but it means something, you being here. Others slowly followed kitchen staff, janitors, front desk, night auditors. They shared their stories, their struggles, their hopes. Some thanked her. Some apologized without words, just with the soft looks in their eyes. For the first time in a long time, Elena didn't feel like she was standing above her company. But within it, among it, the message was clear. Real change wouldn't come from memos or punishments. It would come from connection, from being present. From being human, first leader, second. She wasn't building a brand anymore. She was building a culture. And this time she wasn't doing it from a corner office. She was doing it from the ground up, back in her suite. Elena sat cross-legged on the leather couch, her tablet resting against her knees. Jasmine Cole, her assistant, had just finished another briefing call. Charleston heard about what happened. Jasmine said, Savannah 2 staff are buzzing. Elena exhaled slowly. She knew how fast rumors traveled in hospitality, especially ones involving the CEO showing up unannounced and flipping the power dynamics. Good, Elena said. Let them buzz. Let them wonder. Media's requesting comment, Jasmine added. Want me to prep a statement? Elena shook her head. No statement, no interviews. Let the work speak louder than the press. It wasn't about becoming a headline. It was about becoming a movement. She tapped her pen thoughtfully against the tablet. Schedule rotation visits for me. I'm doing this across every Ridge property. Jasmine's eyebrows lifted. All 16. All 16, Elena confirmed. Quiet, consistent pressure. That's how you crack systems, wide open, not through anger, but through steady, undeniable presence. They wouldn't just see her name on a plaque anymore. They would feel her leadership in every interaction, every hallway, every decision made without a second thought. Starting now. Before she left Denver, Elena hosted one final meeting not with executives, but with the senior frontline staff, supervisors, team leads, shift managers, the people who shape guest experiences daily without flashy titles or press releases. She gathered them in a smaller lounge. No podium, no microphones, just a circle of chairs. I'm giving you the power, Elena said, to call out bias, to correct disrespect, to defend dignity. And not just when a corporate badge walks through the door, but always a maintenance supervisor raised his hand hesitant. Even if it's another manager, Elena smiled, especially then the room stirred. She continued, you're not just employees, you're stewards of this brand's soul. And if you ever feel unsupported when standing up for what's right, you call me directly. She handed out business cards, simple white with her direct line. It wasn't theater. It was a contract written in something stronger than ink trust. Elena left the meeting feeling lighter than she had in months. Change wasn't waiting for permission anymore. It had already begun. As Elena checked out later that evening, the front desk looked different. A new face smiled warmly at her. A young black woman, freshly hired, her name tag, shining Maya Ellis. Good evening, Ms. Marshall. Maya said, her voice confident but kind. Your car is ready. Safe travels. And thank you for everything. Elena's heart lifted a little, not because someone finally recognized her, but because someone finally understood what she stood for. As she stepped into her waiting SUV, Elena's hand brushed something tucked into her tote, a folded piece of notepaper. It was from Taylor Monroe. In small, shaky handwriting, it simply read, "Thank you for seeing me. I won't forget this." Elena smiled, folding the note carefully and slipping it into her wallet. Because leadership wasn't about being seen. It was about seeing others and helping them rise higher than the world ever told them they could. And this time, Elena knew. It was working. 2 days later, Elena stood at the front of a modest conference room in Charleston, South Carolina, one of Ridge Hotel's oldest properties. No fancy lights, no catered breakfast. Just 20 employees folding chairs and an old whiteboard. It was the first stop of her new initiative, Ridge Rising, a mentorship program not for executives, but for the desk clerks, the porters, the housekeepers, the people who held the brand together at its roots. Elena smiled at them. Not with corporate polish, but genuine warmth. I'm not here today as your CEO, she said. I'm here as someone who sat behind a front desk, once too scared to speak up, too overlooked to be noticed. The room was still. No one checked their phones. No one whispered. She continued, "You're not invisible. You're the heartbeat of hospitality, and we're going to make sure you're treated that way from now on." Across the room, a young man in a pressed but worn uniform blinked quickly, fighting emotion. Elena caught it and it fueled her. This wasn't about fixing a hotel anymore. It was about fixing an entire culture. Instead of board reports or quarterly charts, Elena spent the next 2 days shadowing the frontline staff. She stripped beds with housekeeping. She polished lobby floors with janitors. She helped the night auditor balance books at 300 a.m. Her blazer traded for sneakers and a Ridge Hotel hoodie. Some staff were stunned into silence. Others whispered, wondering if it was a test. It wasn't. It was a lesson. Respect isn't handed down from a penthouse suite. It's built in the dirty laundry rooms, the clattering kitchens, the quiet overnight shifts where no one sees you. One evening, as Elena folded towels alongside an older housekeeper named Mrs. Garland, the woman smiled and said, "You ain't like the others." Elena laughed softly. "I'm not here to be like the others." Mrs. Garland nodded approvingly. "Good. We've had enough of them." The Ridge brand would not rise because of slogans. It would rise because its leaders got their hands dirty and remembered why they built anything at all. During a lunch break, sitting cross-legged on a housekeeping cart, Elena found herself deep in conversation with an unlikely mentor, Marcus, a bellman with 20 years under his belt. He told her about the first hotel he worked for where guests called him boy and managers looked the other way, where promotions went to smiles and suits, never to calloused hands or tired feet. "You ever think about quitting?" Elena asked. Marcus leaned back, his eyes heavy with memory. Every damn day. But quitting don't change nothing. Staying showing up, that's how you win, even if nobody's clapping for you. Elena let that settle. For years, she'd fought so hard for visibility, for recognition, for a seat at the table. But here was a man who taught her something deeper. Sometimes the real fight wasn't about being seen. It was about standing your ground when no one's looking. She scribbled the quote into her notebook, a new cornerstone for Ridge Rising. Real leaders didn't just show up for photo ops. They showed up when no one else did. That night alone in her Charleston suite, Elena sat at the desk, a single lamp casting a golden glow across the notepad in front of her. She wrote a letter not to her board, not to shareholders, but to every frontline employee she hadn't met yet. It read, "Dear Ridge family, you are not invisible. You are not replaceable. You are the reason guests return, the reason memories are made, the reason Ridge hotels will endure. When you hold a door, you open more than an entrance. When you say welcome, you build more than a check-in. You build belonging. And in case no one has told you lately, you matter. Always have, always will, Elena Marshall." She folded the note carefully and emailed it to Jasmine with a simple instruction. Print it, thousands of copies, every employee, every property. The real legacy wasn't buildings. It was people. As Elena prepared to leave Charleston, she noticed a familiar figure standing quietly near the curb. Maya Ellis, the young woman who had checked her out days earlier. Maya stepped forward, shy but determined. "I just wanted to say," Maya began, "you made me realize maybe one day I could be more than front desk." Elena smiled, her voice warm but steady. "You already are." Maya blinked, taken aback. "Titles don't make you important," Maya Elena continued. "How you treat people, how you show up when it's hard, that's what matters." Maya swallowed hard, nodding. As Elena climbed into her car, she felt something unfamiliar. Not anger, not exhaustion. Hope. Real grounded aching. Hope. The kind you don't find in five-star lobbies or shareholder meetings. The kind you build, one conversation, one shift, one brave young employee at a time. As the car pulled away, Elena didn't look back. She didn't need to. Because for the first time in a long time, she wasn't just changing policies. She was changing lives. Elena's next stops were Savannah, Miami, Baltimore, and Austin. Each Ridge Hotel property with its own heartbeat, its own scars. She never announced her arrival. Sometimes she wore sneakers and jeans, other times a simple navy dress. But always she blended in, observing the real unvarnished reality. What she found surprised her. In some hotels, employees whispered to each other, "She could be here today." Treat everyone right. In others, changes were visible. Managers walking the floor, housekeeping, staff being greeted by name, front desk clerks standing taller, prouder. The ripple had become a current. Elena didn't lecture. She asked questions. She listened. "What would make you feel seen?" She asked a cafeteria worker in Miami. "What does real leadership mean to you?" She asked a night auditor in Baltimore. The answers were simple, almost heartbreakingly so. Be noticed, be valued, be believed in. And for the first time, Ridge Hotels wasn't just growing taller. It was growing deeper. At Ridge headquarters in Chicago, Elena convened her senior leadership for an emergency summit. No corporate gloss, no marketing slogans, just hard truths. "This is the new standard," she said, projecting a simple slide. "Respect is non-negotiable. Humanity is mandatory." One by one, she outlined the new initiatives. Mandatory empathy workshops. Anonymous reporting lines for discrimination. Performance reviews that included how people were treated, not just what was achieved. Surprise mentorship visits with Elena. Herself showing up unannounced, the room was tense. Some executives shifted uncomfortably. Good, Elena thought. Comfort never changed anything worth saving. "You are not here to protect your egos," she said plainly. "You are here to protect our culture." If they couldn't handle that, they had no place in Ridge's future. It wasn't a purge. It was a rebirth. And it was long overdue. Weeks later, Elena returned to Denver, the place where it all began. She stepped into the Renaissance Ridge lobby on a crisp Friday morning, this time blending in as just another guest. The difference was immediate. The doorman opened the door with genuine warmth. The front desk clerk, different from before, smiled fully. No glances up and down, no assumptions in his gaze. Housekeeping staff passed by, greeted her. Not because they knew her title, but because it had become the culture. Respect wasn't about her anymore. It was about everyone. She lingered by the lobby cafe sipping a cappuccino, watching the life she had fought for begin to take root. Was it perfect? No. Would there be setbacks? Absolutely. But she could feel it, like the first steady notes of a symphony long overdue. Not performance, real progress. The kind that no title, no plaque on a wall could manufacture. Later that night, back in her suite, Elena penned a final note, one she had been drafting in her heart for months. It wasn't to Ridge employees, it was to herself. Dear Elena, you will always walk into rooms where people doubt you. You will always wear your skin and your story like armor. You will always be judged by those who cannot imagine your power. Walk in anyway. Stand tall anyway. Speak gently but never small. Build what they said was impossible. And when they finally see you 2014, not for your title but for your truth, 2014, smile. Because the goal was never their applause, it was always your legacy. She folded the letter and tucked it into the leather-bound journal she carried everywhere but rarely showed anyone. Some victories didn't need an audience. They just needed to be lived. The next morning, Elena checked out of the Renaissance Ridge Hotel under a soft, pearly sunrise. There were no paparazzi, no viral videos, no grand send-offs. Just a front desk clerk named Aiden who smiled at her like she mattered. Safe travels, Miss Marshall, he said warmly. Hope you come back soon. Elena returned the smile, her chest full in a way no award or profit margin had ever managed. I will, she said simply. As her car pulled away from the curb, the city stretched before her, bright, chaotic, beautiful. She didn't look back. Because real leadership wasn't about being seen. It was about seeing others and building a world where they could finally see themselves too. And for the first time in a long time, Elena Marshall didn't feel like she had something to prove. She felt like she had something to protect, and she was just getting started. True leadership isn't about demanding respect after recognition. It's about embodying dignity when no one's watching. You don't have to shout to be heard. You don't have to explain your worth. Walk in with quiet strength and build spaces where others feel seen too.